I want you to imagine that you're in a fight with a guy who has a knife. It was an argument that turned violent. Now you're 6 to 10 feet apart. He's got a knife. You don't have any weapons. You're in the street. What do? Or how about this one? You're at the playground and a guy with a knife runs around and starts stabbing kids with it. What do? I know what you're going to do. I know what you're thinking right now. I know what you're typing right now that you're going to do. And the truth is, you're probably not going to do any of that. Now, I know what you're going to say because in each of those scenarios, there's really only one right answer. And as different as they are, the thing that those two scenarios have in common is that there is only really one right answer. I'm going to get into the specifics of that answer here in a second, but I could sum it up as in not something stupid. I wouldn't do something stupid, I can tell you that. And I just don't know where people got that idea because everybody does something stupid in these scenarios. I didn't make these up. These are real things that just happened in the past couple of days involving knife attacks. In this scenario where these two guys are fighting on the street, there's a very, very obvious answer all of you are going to say here, which is he should run away. And spoiler alert, the guy did not run away. He stood his ground and fought and paid for it with his life. Now, the purpose of this video is not to Monday morning quarterback and talk about how what this guy did was wrong and what he should have done instead. Nobody is confused about that. What I hope this video does is shed light on the idea that that's probably exactly what some of you would do. Everybody in the comment section says, well, they would just run away. This was an example of a time where running would have been appropriate. He definitely could outrun that dude. The guy had a knife, he didn't. I'm not gonna get into motive or justifications, right, wrong, legal, illegal. We don't know all the details. We don't actually know what was happening. I'm talking about the mechanics and the tactics of the incident, which is guys are fighting, guy has knife, guy without knife dies. It's almost a layup of what is the correct answer in this scenario. Every single one of you with 2 brain cells to rub together would say, I would just run. But if you have any amount of martial arts training, there's a really good chance you won't. Because, and I don't know this is just me guessing, from his posture, body language, stance, and movement, I think this guy, at the very least, boxes. I think he's done some boxing. And I'm not 100% sure, but my trained expert eye tells me this guy has had some sort of training. I think he's probably an amateur boxer. He's clearly done some sparring. And if he hasn't boxed, if I'm totally wrong, then he has a lot of experience fighting. The way that he carries himself, the way he positions his hands, the way he positions his feet is not the natural way of doing things for a street fighter. And his choice to stand and fight was no doubt informed by that training and or experience. And there's also a more than zero chance that maybe it was not his ego or him being foolish and deciding to fight a person with a knife because he knew he could beat him and he was very confident. Maybe he felt the need to protect others. Maybe he felt if he didn't fight that guy, then this guy would hurt somebody else. These are all possibilities. He might have had very good reasons for doing what he did. My point is that if you train, there's a good chance that you would do the same even when you shouldn't. And speaking of bystanders, take a look at this person right here who has just walked upon 2 men fighting, one of which has a knife and is like, hey, you guys are kind of in the way. Which brings us to the real point of this video is that people do weird stuff under stress. They go back to what they know under stress. And if you are the most trained, baddest ass person on the planet, you will go to being the most trained, baddest ass person on the planet under stress. If you're a big old pile of nothing, you will be a big old pile of nothing under stress. This is why I hate when people talk about being a mama bear or don't mess with my kids. Everyone will tell you, every parent walking the planet will tell you that someone better not mess with my kids. But, it doesn't bear out. Like, kids get assaulted and are the victims of crimes all the time. And the frequency of parents defending those children physically or retaliating violently is really, really low compared to the number of parents who would say that's exactly what they would do. If someone were stabbing your child, you wouldn't think, well, I would kind of scream and push at him a little bit and fall over. You wouldn't think that you would do that. She didn't think that she would do that. If you asked her, she wouldn't think, well, I think if someone attacked my child, I probably wouldn't be able to compute what is happening. I wouldn't have any answers. My legs would turn to jello. I would accomplish very little and most likely just fall over. No mother is going to say, yeah, I probably wouldn't be much help at all if someone attacked my children. No one's going to say it because they don't know it. And even if they knew it, they would never admit it. So maybe you have kids and you think that you would do anything to protect them. Probably not. You probably wouldn't. You would probably do exactly whatever you have trained to do. Now, if you've trained to fight and the situation calls for fighting, you might very well do that, but there are still some problems, like in this case at the playground. That's what I mean by there's one right answer, which is to wreck that dude. And I mean completely wreck that dude, like smash him into paste with help from bystanders. Everyone should have immediately tackled that guy and began stomping him out. But people do weird things under stress. They go back to what they know. Look at this guy. This guy knows going down slides. He did that under stress. If you ask that guy, hey, it just broke loose at the playground, you taking the slide down? He'd probably be like, I don't know. You definitely take the slide. This guy following him around with the backpack isn't really accomplishing much, but he's doing something. So I could reasonably guess that in his day-to-day life, he very often cares for others and solves problems, but just not violent problems. Like, that's not a thing that he is experienced in, but he tried to do something. If you look at this woman here, she's frozen. She doesn't want to turn and run because she hasn't practiced turning and running. No one's told her exactly how that works. Everybody thinks just run. Everybody thinks that's just some thing that you'll automatically do. You probably won't if you didn't practice it. If you didn't train it, you're not gonna do it. I know you're special. You're built different. I don't understand your mentality. If you'd have asked any of the people in any of these incidents what they would do in this scenario, all of them would talk just like you. All of them would say the same things that you're saying. One of my biggest fears is one of my children being attacked and their martial arts training kicking in and them fighting back, but them doing so silently. They're trained to be quiet. They're trained not to show fear. They're trained not to show pain. They're trained to suck it up, show their poker face, show their war face, and move on. Maddox grew up fighting grown men and barely holding back tears because he was scared and he was hurt and it sucked. And he learned, like, don't show them. And I worry because I think under stress, he won't make a peep. No one's going to yell for help. No one's going to run because you don't practice these things. Because nobody is buying memberships to classes that teach it. The only guy I know that does spend a significant portion of his class time on that sort of stuff is Craig Douglas. I've covered his courses here on this channel, which brings me to how I know this personally. My last time through Edged Weapons Overview, I had an interesting thing play out in one of my scenarios where I reverted to my training.
Good. Smother him, watch his shots. Back take. Stay on. Stay on. Work it. Work that back take. Blake.
Yep.
Blake, give it to him.
Yep.
Stay up. Keep going. Keep going.
There you go.
Stand up. Stand up, Mike. 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 Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. Stand up, though. Stand up. Stand up. Break! Right here.
My training was just to do the absolute most damage I could do to this person. That's MMA training. That's MMA mentality. That's fighting, not self-defense. I was actually in a dominant position. I'd done some damage. He was not holding on to me. I could have stood up and run at any point, but no part of my brain at all ever tells me to do that. None. There's no part of me that tells me to run unless I decided beforehand I was going to run. Or like at the Ultimate Self-Defense Championship where the purpose of the game was to run away. And I do this stuff for a living. And I teach people and tell people, yeah, make sure you yell for help. Make sure you tell bystanders you don't know this person. If the first chance you get, you run away. But we don't practice that nearly enough. And neither do you. Nobody does. Everybody's always in Reddit and in the comment section of every video talking about how they would just run, or they would just de-escalate, or they would just create distance. All this just jitsu. You're not going to do it. You're going to do whatever you practice doing under stress. That's a fact. And I think it's crazy and laughable that people really, sincerely, honestly, look at hypothetical situations and say, you know what I think I'd do during the most stressful incident that has ever occurred to me in my life? Something I've never ever practiced once. That's what'll probably happen. I will rise to the occasion. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of training. People do crazy things under stress. I've been to burglaries where the guy stole a DVD player. They broke into the house, stole the DVD player, but they unplugged the coax cable from the wall and plugged it into the TV for the person that they were stealing the DVD player from. They didn't do this because they were just being polite. They didn't do this because they thought no one would notice the burglary. The front doors kicked in. They did it because they were going through an extremely stressful time, and that's sort of an automatic thing. Oh, you're unplugging the DVD player? I just realized as I'm telling this story that there's a certain age that has no idea what I'm talking about. People just do wild stuff under stress. Almost every single person on the planet would like to think, oh yeah, if I got into trouble and something bad happened, I wouldn't do very stupid things that make no sense. But that's what you do when your brain is confronted with something that you can't process. It takes you a while to catch up. You have to train against that. If you've trained to box, you'll box. If you've trained to wrestle, you'll wrestle. If you've trained to do enough wrestling to keep them from getting you on the ground and then box them, you'll do that. That's probably what you do if you trained here. And that may or may not be good enough in your scenario. It might work out just great. You might like cream the dude and be the hero that you imagine yourself to be. But if you train at a place where you keep yourself from getting taken down, you know how to hit, maybe you know how to use weapons, maybe you know how to defend yourself against weapons, you've practiced all that, to then say, and I probably would also run away when the time is right. I would yell for help when the time is right. I would say the right things to bystanders or on the phone with 911. I would do all these things. During the most stressful incident of my entire life, I'm going to do a bunch of very complicated tasks. Cognitively, mechanically, tactically, I'm going to do everything really, really well. It's just crazy to think that.